now. Welcome everyone to the competition conversations BUAL 2x2. So I'm Erin. Currently, I'm an SABD student going into semester 5, and I'll be your MC for today. And before we start, just remember to keep yourselves muted during the event so that there is no interruption during the session. And also, the chat box is going to be open all the time. So do leave your questions if you have any throughout the whole session lah. So spare me some time as I explain a little bit about this event as well as the format of the session today. So on January 6th this year, the PAM Awards and PAM Student Awards have been announced, and two of our recent graduates, Jethro and Kalvin Bong, one part-time lecturer, AR Mun Inn from DCA Design Collectives Architects, and one ex-part-time lecturer, AR Cherng Yih from Form Zero have been recognized through these awards. So today's event, Competition Conversations, BUAL 2x2, is basically held to leverage on this. And the conversations today will evolve around basically whether there was a recipe for conversations and also what did the conversations teach them. Okay, so now I'll talk a little bit about today's format. So BUAL 2x2 features a 1 hour conversation with AR Manin and AR Lee Cherng Yih, moderated by AR Ahmad Nazmi, an academician from SABD. So the dialogue will be between the SABD design lecturers who have basically helmed the PAM Awards for the Residential Building Silver Award for the project House 68 by AR Manin from DCA, and the PAM Awards for Residential Building Gold and Building of the Year Award by AR Lee Cherng Yih from Form Zero. And then the second hour will be a conversation with Mr. Jethro and Kalvin Bong, the recent graduates of Taylor's University, whose final semester undergraduate design have been basically recognized through the PAM Student Awards 2020 bronze category. And this will be moderated by Mr. Gary Yeo, an SABD alumni and currently a postgrad student at Strathclyde University. So in short, this conversation will be basically about stories where the speakers describe the process step by step and give advice that will basically allow you to understand their secret formula better. Okay, so without further to do, sorry, let's go straight into the session now. And I'll pass this on to Mr. Nazmi to explain and begin the session.
Thank you, Erin. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very hot day today, so luckily we're indoors. Not that we have any option otherwise. So basically, I'll be moderating the first session, which I'm happy to do because it also involves two kind of former colleagues. I was teaching with Mun Inn in this semester 6, part 1 graduating studio, probably 2 years ago. And in a way, my first foray into teaching masters was taking over some students who were formerly students of Cherng Yih. So let's say me and these people go way back. So basically, the first session would be a discussion on, let's say, also around the fact that they were recently awarded these two prizes. How it's going to be will be that it will begin with 15 minutes presentation each from Mun Inn and Cherng Yih, followed by, let's say, a discussion where I would pose several questions. I would then also take questions from the floor. We've already discussed before you joined, Cherng Yih, that Mun Inn will go first alphabetically. So what I will do now is introduce the both of you before I hand it over to Mun Inn for his short presentation. Okay, so Mun Inn is the founding principal of DCA, Design Collective Architects, as well as EDI Architects in Everhead, both of which are registered practices with LAM. He's also one of the founders of the non-profit architecture foundation, DOMA Initiatives Berhad. Mun Inn has always been involved in education since he graduated from Curtin University in '98. He was a part-time lecturer for design studios at the School of Architecture and Built Environment at Lim Kok Wing from 1999 until moving to Taylor's in 2006. And he's been with us in Taylor's until today. In the recent PAM Awards, his project House 68 was awarded the silver medal for private residences, while the blue box was awarded a commendation. So one is a project undertaken under DCA, Design Collective Architects. The other project, the Blue Box, was undertaken under EDI. Now Cherng Yih. So Cherng Yih received his architecture degree from RMIT in Melbourne in 2002. After spending a decade working in Shanghai, London, and KL, Cherng Yih founded From Zero in 2012, an architectural research studio injected with the ideology of re-engaging with the architecture within a tropical landscape and the urban context. His design approach often focuses on challenging the conventional architectural typologies and the boundaries of urban realm. From Zero is also serving as a think tank that runs within MOA Architects in Kuala Lumpur. And I think in the recent award, he was actually given the Building of the Year award for the Planter Box House. So that's the kind of short introduction for both of our guests today. Now I would like to invite Mun Inn to maybe start first with his presentation. I was told that they're each given 15 minutes. So yeah, over to you.
All right, thanks, Azmi. Okay, I'll make it casual. It's Saturday, 3 o'clock in the weekend. It's supposed to be a BUAL, so it's going to be casual. I'll start sharing what I have kind of prepared this morning. And I guess the point is that if you ask, is there a formula? That's the formula, I think. Look for a book for dummies. But I think the thing is that what do you actually look at when you start looking at competitions or when you start submitting for architecture competitions? I mean, to me, there's actually 3 simple steps. If I look at it, pray hard. Seriously, just keep praying and just hope for the best. Wait for the planets to align. The point is that it's got to be at the right time in the right place, and everything's just got to be in the right position. And basically, if you're able to time travel, go to the future and find out what is the current topic. I mean, of course, I'm saying these 3 items jokingly in jest, but all of them have a little bit of truth in it. I mean, if I talk, you bring you back to a little bit more serious. I mean, these are just images of Instagram feeds. I mean, we're living in an Instagram generation, or TikTok, whatever you call it nowadays. And everyone has ADD. You're flooded by information, you're flooded by images. I took these screenshots from my phone at 7:15 this morning. Just 7:15. Within this minute, you already see so many images. So the point is that you're flooded by information and you're flooded by images. And that's exactly how I think the juries and the judges, when you actually submit your project for review, for a competition, they are flooded by information. So in a sense, your images will be seen for almost a micro millisecond. Literally just flick through all like hundreds and hundreds of images that they receive. They flick through it, and it's got to catch their attention in that very short period of time. So in a sense, that, I mean, you go through your school lectures in your presentations in school. Lecturers keep telling you, okay, focus on a hero shot or something like that. So it's almost the same in the sense that it's got to have an image that catches somebody's attention. If it doesn't, it just gets passed through. So no matter how good your project is, it doesn't get seen. So it's got to be documented well. Your images have to be somehow recorded or taken well. I mean, it's got to have nice pictures up. And I guess, again, pray hard that he's not reading his text. He's literally focusing on the pictures that he's looking at. So if he doesn't pay attention, he misses your image, you're screwed. Literally, you don't get it. Another one is basically having a strong and clear message. It's got a purpose, it's got an agenda. I mean, the thing is, again, I come back to lectures in school where students, you guys are actually marked in design. You're actually marked for your clarity of ideas. So it's got to be very clear. So a purpose and an agenda has to be clear. I mean, I don't have to tell you who this person is, but you already know what her agenda is, and you already know her purpose is, and she's loud, and she's crass, and she's really direct. So in a sense that you want your project to have that, and it's got to be clear. So how do you be clear is by submitting diagrams, images, and sections that actually explain this intent of your narrative. Again, you do have to understand that a good narrative, when it's not done properly, is pointless because it's just storytelling. So your narrative has to be proven. So finally, is that the award committee or whatever will eventually send somebody there, a technical reviewer. He will send somebody to the actual project site. And if your narrative does not match what is experienced on site, or it's not proven on site, again, it doesn't work as well. So you got to prove yourself. I mean, again, I don't have to tell you which project this thing is. I had a chance to actually visit it, and I tell you, it's as good as whatever is being sold. Everybody tells you this. The moment you visit the thing, it is true. It proves itself. So you've got, your project has to work, right? So if you just look at it that way, it's a very simple 3-step thing. You just got to have a very strong idea, and you've got to prove it, and it's got to be experienced. And then finally, I think you really need to have luck. Again, like I said, it's the planets have to align. It's got to be so-called the trend, the topic, the agenda of that particular period of time. The juries want to make a point. The juries want to say something about a particular topic or an agenda, and your project kind of fall into that agenda. So again, the planets have to align. If it goes in that trend, in the sense that maybe this year they're a little bit more interested in this particular agenda, and they want to push the agenda, and your project just kind of fall into place as an example of that agenda, and then eventually it gets pushed through. So it's very much dependent on luck. And if the planets all align, if your feng shui is good and everything, that's it. Good for you. You get it. So in a sense, we've kind of got these 2 projects this round. I'm going to show you this very simple project first, the blue box, we call it. This was almost zero fee, pro bono kind of do it as a favor for an ex-client project. I mean, it's a school auditorium. I mean, how much can you charge? How much can you get out of it? It's basically, they don't even have money for it. So literally everybody's contributing something. So what happened was that an ex-client of ours, who's basically a benefactor of the school. I mean, he's been supporting the school. He's been helping out the school, donating and stuff like that. We did his house, I think, the year before. Then all of a sudden, he just called me, hey, can help us? Can tolong us? So, okay, well, tolong. So what we did was, I did a quick sketch for him, did a couple of perspectives, because what he needed was that he needed some perspectives and some ideas and some drawings to submit or to present to the PABG, to ask for fundraising, to ask for money. And what I did was, okay, I drew something out for him, and I went through, and long story short, eventually we got built up. I mean, based on a donation. But I think that the project I wanted to share this was that it's not so much of that part. It's how this project came about. I mean, when they came to us, in the sense that all they said was that they needed a hall. Basically something like a stage hall, they want to build something. And they didn't tell me where, they didn't tell us where, they don't even know where to build it. They didn't say need to build a hall, so what do we do? So in a very layman situation, like for them, is that you just find a corner in the field and say, okay, I want to build a hall there, and then but when we actually went there, there was this concrete stairs that's already there facing the field, and it's all properly staged. It's nicely there. So in the sense that I was telling them, why do you want to spend money building the new foundation, building a new slab whatsoever? Just use this slab and just put a roof over it, and you get a hall. So I kind of like sketched this out. This was what my guys did, measuring every single step, because every step was different. I mean, construction with this kind of things were, they vary between like 50 mm to 100 mm, so they're very, very different. So literally we had to measure everything. Took a measurement and actually drew it out and proposed to him in the sense that you've got an existing stairs. You even have an existing little podium where you can actually have your VIP sit there and whatever. So we showed them this. say, okay, if you do a stage there and you use back the existing stairs, all we do, we just put 4 walls and a roof over it. Just enclose it. Then if you have money, we start getting air conditioners, fans, projectors, and stuff like that to furnish up the thing. So we got the drawings all done up. He managed to convince the PIBG and the school to, he managed to get the money in a sense and get the sponsors. So eventually it was built as cheaply as possible. Literally whatever we can source or whatever we can get from the donors. We used tiles, we were sponsored, the roof was sponsored, the fans were sponsored, the lighting was sponsored. Whatever we can get, we did. And we built it. So it's sometimes projects come along because of another project. And it's like it's almost like a favor. And I mean, it's a nice project at the end when we finished it. It's kind of nice. I mean, it's not a flashy kind of like super Cherng kind of project where you've got like expensive aluminum louvers and skins and fins and whatever. It's just basically a painted wall. But it serves the purpose, and they are now using it for school events, assemblies and stuff like that for them. So it was created, and whatever you're seeing here, the base of the steps were the existing steps. All we did was we had a sponsor from, I forgot, was it Faruni or something, and I forgot which brand, who eventually sponsored the tiles. So they basically tiled over. I think one of the parents there were like air conditioner, like contractors and stuff. So eventually they also contributed some air conditioning systems and stuff like that. So a lot of it was done in collaboration with these people. And it's not an easy project, made harder that there is literally very little fee to it. So, but it's it's a nice project to end it with, in a sense. So this was one of the projects that we got an award this year. The second one is House 68. I think this one is a little bit more published than the previous one. This one is in layman's terms, a rich man's house. But again, that's our, our bread and butter, our kind of project. We do a lot of this kind of projects in KL and around Malaysia and stuff. So this was done many years to begin with. We started this project many years ago. These kind of projects don't like it's not like 2-3 year kind of project. These projects are like 6-7 years projects, so they're quite long. We started off again models. I think you guys in school, you're still doing it. We're still doing it in the studio. We're still doing it in our office. All our projects go through at least 2-3 versions of models, and it's developed over time. Every time it changes, we rip them apart and we amend on the model itself before it's actually built. So this model, I think it's got so adjusted and changed. I think it's no longer around. It's literally fallen apart. We took it apart and blew it back and took it apart, so it's literally all gone now. Fortunately, we still have the photos for it. This house was done in a concept of 3 pavilions. I mean, you don't see it in the model because of the big overlapping kind of roof and that covers everything. But in a sense, there's actually 3 main pavilions. You've got a guest pavilion on one side, you've got a family pavilion in the middle, and then you've got a formal living or an entertainment pavilion. And everything else in between is naturally ventilated, or it's just a big void. It's just where it allows the air to go through. So whatever you see here in green, that's the actual massing of the house. The rest of it is just an open in-between spaces, we call it. I hope this goes through. This is just a simple video that we took. I mean, I think this was just the day when it was completed and the owner was moving in. So we managed to just do a quick capture of the house. It is a big house. But the thing is, it looks like one single unit, but in actual sense, it's actually 3 units. There's a big hole in the middle here, there's another big hole here, there's another big hole here. So it's very porous and it's very airy. If you look at the pictures that we took, literally the inside and the outside is blurred. You are actually living in and outdoors. What we did was we kind of explained the idea that there is this concept of the third space, where the office is one space and your home is the second space, and then you have the third space being a space that you go and chill out, and sometimes work and sometimes meet people and sometimes socialize. But in a sense, in the context of a house itself, we define it as the indoor space, the garden space or landscape space being the second space, and the third space being the in-between, the veranda, the serambi, the lanais, and whatever. So the in-between space is actually very important. And what happens is that the third space becomes flexible in the sense that the indoors expand out when you need to, and when you don't need to, it contracts, and then the garden expands out. So there's a certain flexibility between the inside and outside. And this third space, the in-between space, is big. We actually designed it in such a way that there's really, really big semi-spaces. I mean, this is actually one of the in-between spaces. This is actually the main door. In which case, this drop-off is here. It's kind of like inside, but it's not inside, it's outside. The overhang itself covers the walkway here, but it doesn't cover as well because it's so big and so high. There's a very big water garden in the middle of the house. It's kind of like the house surrounds the water garden. And this is one of the tunnels that goes through the house. It's basically a ventilation tunnel, a big bridge that crosses between the living room and the dining room. So it crosses over this walkway, and it's open. Literally, there are no windows whatsoever. It's kept open throughout the day. A lot of semi-open spaces that you use when you need to. And like I said, the dining and the living kind of like is connected through this semi-open space again. The inside looks like the outside. The outside looks like the inside. So literally, again, the only way you can tell that it's indoor is when you see a glass and you know, okay, this is inside and that's outside. But if we could even just take away the glass if you want to. So it's kind of like semi-open. So the outdoor is actually brought in through landscape, and underneath the stairs is actually stone garden and living rooms. I thought it'd be interesting to also show you some of the pictures during construction. So these were the pictures taken, I think, during our site inspections. And I was there when you kind of like catch certain views of the thing. I mean, you can really see that it's very outdoorsy. So I think that's what we try to do. There was a discussion. I sat down. I think you can see Professor Robert Powell sitting here somewhere. And this picture was taken by one of my colleagues as well. And this was shot from across the house. And it kind of looks like we're sitting in underneath a gazebo or an outdoor garden, but in actual fact, it's actually the formal living. So the formal living itself kind of have this blurred boundaries where both sides of the room is actually totally open and folds open. You can see on one side, and literally you're as though you're sitting outdoors. Again, the sense of scale and sense of materiality. This is when you come in, and this is the inside lobby of the house. The light comes through. Shoot through this hanging staircase, so the light kind of carries through all the way to the door and comes to the entrance. This whole thing is the main door, but of course we cheat the actually opening up to this line. Even that is already like 14 feet, so it's kind of a very tall door. These were some of the images of the water garden before the water was filled in during construction in the evening. Beautiful view in the sunset. Again, it's one of the advantages I get when we're doing projects like this is that, when the sun sets and we start doing the light testing, we come down and we actually see it for the first time. It really gets to you. It really goes like, thanks. I think that's it. I think it's a 10 to 15 minute shot. I think like Nancy said, we operate under these two offices. They're both sister companies, so it's just that they're operating through this two different teams. So it's a very long story. Anybody who wants to find out why I've got two offices, whenever we sit up a coffee, I can explain to you. But other than that, it's a very long story. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mun Inn. Thank you for that presentation. Can I invite Cherng Yih to share yours? 15 minutes. Yeah.
Sorry, sir, we can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you, Cherng Yih.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Cherng Yih, loud and clear.
Hi, can you hear me, anyone? I want to know.
Yes, we can. We can.
Yes, we can hear you.
I have
Can you get
no
on?
sound.
Yeah.
We
Can
can
hear.
hear you.
We can.
Okay, all right, okay, now I see. Okay, when we asked to share whether there is really a recipe, to be honest, I'm not really sure, but the way we approach competitions and building the design, do the actual work, actually is completely different. So all I can share is how do we really approach every time when we start to do a project. And today's session, I just want to share all the rules that we have been setting that has been shaping us today. I think for every time when we start a project or when we do a competitions, we really hope to find a design or concept that almost has the most powerful character, I guess, which means that we hope to find out who will be the tenors. So, but ideally, that's impossible to have a concept that it can do all the power, which doesn't really exist. And you cannot have a concept that consists of 10 best idea put in one project. Just don't be too greedy, I guess. So usually when we try to do, it's every time we try to zoom out a bit, try to at the end pinpoint and narrow down to one really specific skill or point that we think we can amplifying it further and then zoom in until it become a lot more unique. So sometimes some of the idea, actually I would say most of the idea that we're looking at actually is quite tiny and they don't seem really big matter. But at the end, the result is always very surprising. So I would say we always focus on really one thought. And of course, around the one thought, there's always many tiny little secondary thoughts, which we also wish to include them, but sometimes we have to ignore all these really secondary things. So I would just take years ago, when we won the MBAM HQ competitions, throughout the whole brainstorming process, we actually the whole team actually has listed down, and we also look at so many different ideas and thoughts. And if you just look at all this, each of them could be the main character. But at the end, we cannot to include everyone into the small room. So we have to let go a lot of them and only focus on one, and then we amplifying it. So eventually the interconnected gardens stood out, and we just pushing for that and let go the rest. Of course, the rest will become a complementary, but they will not be the key selling point. So one key selling point is the one that to capture the jury heart, I guess, instead of very long, lengthy, complicated explanations that try to include so many things. Actually, even for all the build projects, we try to only have one big unique selling point. So for the network gardens, this is the only actually key selling diagram that we have been pushing for, and that will be the outcome of what the project looks like. That there's a lots of pocket garden broken down throughout the whole buildings, and then they're all linked by staircase, forming a very secondary networks throughout the whole project. Number two is every project and every selling point is driven by user experience. Maybe personally, I just don't know how to bullshit very deep philosophy. I think for every build project or eventually every architecture, you just want your project to touch and move the user. So if you work backward, then the main key point, the selling point, has to be driven by how the user is going to use it, or how people look at it, how people feel it, instead of pushing for some really deep philosophy that only yourself will understand. I'm not saying that philosophy doesn't work, or for certain architects, they are all driven by philosophy, which is totally fine, or they will have higher thought. But it just, for me, it's really hard to try to vomit out a deep thought that people don't really understand, at least me. So one very simple example is when we did the Red Hill Gallery in Seremban. We were given this huge, giant agriculture land, which is surrounded by all the palm trees. And we noticed that actually within this site, there's one patch of a different texture of green in the Google Earth. And the client told us, hey, don't worry about that, just flatten the whole site. It is a tabula rasa site. Just assume it's a blanket to work on. After that, we find out that the surrounding palm tree will be gone, but the middle patch is actually quite a nice grown-up rubber trees. So after a very, very long battle fighting with the clients and the marketing team, we convinced them to keep this little patch, because this little patch is supposed to be where the building is located. So, so what we tell them, say, when you look at the buildings, we actually want to put the buildings, actual building behind the little rubber tree forest. And we force all the visitor park outside the forest, and they must walk through the forest to enter the gallery. Means you cannot see the gallery at the first glance. We just want a little bit of suspensions and to have this gallery appear like hiding behind a veil. And you, of course, the purpose of keeping the forest is always originally was a memory of what was the agriculture was like before. And the reward is really amazing that before you enter the buildings, you actually have to go through this, wandering this rubber tree forest. Then the third point, we always begin with asking fundamental questions. The question we ask is super fundamental. It's so basic that we almost, even including us, we take architecture for granted, I would say. For example, window, there was one point that the client, one of the clients was complaining about their relationship with their neighbor, or how their neighbor relationship, that it has to do with the window, how you use the window. So for that, we were thinking, go back to the very basic, the purpose and the function of window. And then, as usual, the entire Malaysia, the entire terrace house, it's full of this. You must have the car porch on the ground floor, then the living room is behind, then your master bedroom on top. There are millions of houses, terrace house like this, and everything is drop down the curtain. Number one, you don't want to see the street, you don't want to see your neighbor. Number two, you're not driving a Porsche car that you want to look at, so you also put down the curtain at the ends, window, curtain all closed, room is dark, everything it's just closed. No matter how many houses that you see, this is, and people, I would say the entire country, everyone has taken it for granted that a terrace house has to be like this. But when you have one step back, how do you going to reinvent the facade, the window, and to change all this relationship? This is my great grand uncle's house. I think he's like close to 90, I don't know, 80 something, back in my kampong. So one day, I think this is a few years ago, Chinese New Year, I purposely drove by this kampong. Then I thought it's an abandoned house, but then I realized that actually this great uncle, he still live alone inside, and he just let the landscape, the front yard grow wild. And there is a little road that you actually can wandering through. And what really surprised me is that this is not simply a wild landscape. It also includes the chicken coop and some of the vegetable that he grow, and together with the wheat. And I think there's a storage under this high pile of bushes. So it's quite a lot of things going on within a very short and small plot of land. So I was, what really surprised me is that at the one glance, the relationship between a functional landscape and the house, it's almost undistinguishable, I would say. So imagine when the landscape merged into architecture and you dematerializing it. A competition we did also a few years ago for a mosque, we're asking even a more radical questions of what if the religious building has no physical or style for it. And for all my religious people and friends, when they heard me asking that, they think I am ridiculous. And how can I challenge a form or a style that has been implanted into every religious people? And even some of my Christian friends that also questions, how can church has no style? How can mosque doesn't have a particular form? So it's go back to the root of this architecture. It's a metaphysical questions. But you just think about 2,000 years ago, when the founder of the religious, where do they set up this architecture style, and who is going to set it up? It's a regional culture. So to me, every style and form is actually born from a regional culture instead of the religion itself. And slowly they mix together and become inseparable. The third is when you have an intention, an idea, how do you push for unusual solutions? I'm not going to talk much about planter box house today, but this is the briefly little process that was in our mind when we start to design the planter box house. It was come from the idea that the client wanted a house just full of green. This is one. At the same time, they also want to maximize the volume. It came in quite handy that DPK actually allowed and encouraged all the terrace house to be enlarged. So, but land is limited. So in order to give a lot more green, we using green as a facade. But it might be too straightforward if we just have stacking up planter box. So we start to explore many different forms to look at what can this planter do more than just growing green. So growing green is only half of the reason. So the other things such as, I mean, in the architecture sense, we want to completely destroy the scale of it. That's why it looks monstrous like a giant pot. And we also want it to be really functional, that the planter does more than just planter. So they are storeroom, they are mailbox, they are meter box, they are also facilitating the toilet, part of it. They become furniture, some of them. So they really do a lot of multiple tasks just itself. And also because of the location and the topography, all the west side planter is always higher and all the east side is way lower because the east side also facing the KL city skylines. So the planter is actually adjusted in a way that to accommodate all this. And of course, part of the discussion is how do we allow variety? So then when we adjusted the all the cubicles, they're all different sizes because they are meant for different varieties of vegetation. So I think always our thought is very complicated. So one important way is to have very straightforward diagrams. So the window house, the client has so many little rooms, and all the rooms has different functions. So we say, can we customize the window to suit the functions? And one last is coming from myself and my students. Every time when we start something, we are so obsessed with particular form and image. We like it so much and we cannot let go. Then we keep forcing the design go towards it. I mean, this is a three happy fellows for all Chinese. But imagine if at the end, they really build it like this, a 15-story hotel in Beijing. It would be quite horrible, even though I really want to stay there for quite some time ago when I work in China. It's quite worth, but it imagines an architect want to design for a bank, take the coin of Chinese and then turn into a giant coin. This kind of symbolism and I'm not sure it's really contribute to the world of architecture. And my last, I think I won't say it's very important, but it's slightly personally significant to myself that I never need to explain or tell anyone. It's the reference that I borrow from the interior of Bronsham of how the light shaped interior. We actually do a reverse version of it. Of course, it's not exactly the same patterns because the window pattern also actually have to correspond to some of a lot of room behind. But it's kind of paying respect to what I personally really liked, and it really works for the clients this particular house as well. Thank you.
Thank you to both Cherng Yih and Mun Inn for explaining your projects. Okay, so now we can have a kind of a short conversation, maybe about 15 minutes, on let's say on the idea of awards, right? But also, I mean, for those who have questions, please let's say, type down or write your question in the chat, and we'll pick like the most interesting questions and forward it to the two gentlemen.
Okay, Nazim, go back to you.
On my part, I would actually not. I don't really want to talk about let's say how you win competitions, because I think it's quite clear how to win competitions there. But I would really like I would really like to interrogate the idea of actually winning awards, because I find the idea of winning awards really interesting for two reasons. One, like I've never won any awards, and I myself is someone who is extremely kind of cynical or skeptical of awards. Like things that I like are usually not award winning, like be it architecture, be it music, or be it literature. Most of them are pretty obscure. Some of them were only recognized as good, let's say, years after the authors have died. But sometimes they do align. You know, sometimes certain things that I find that I like, sometimes they do win awards, right? And you wonder why. So that's a personal note on my side. So I would really like to maybe discuss with the two of you before we open the question. Is this kind of idea of winning awards, right? Let's say for the both of you, and I'll open it to both. Let's say the first question would be, what does it mean? Let's say to Mun Inn and to Cherng Yih. What does it mean to win an award?
It's purely marketing.
Okay.
Number one is a business. Okay, I'm talking. I think that I had some friends who, we sat down many years ago, and they kind of asked, or we were just jokingly saying, so what kind of architect do you want to be? You want to be a businessman architect, or you want to be an artist architect? Basically, my answer is I want to make money, in a sense. I don't want to be just another architect who just draws and talks about it, but never get anything built. I've always wanted to build something. So in other words, basically, in my mind is that architecture that doesn't get built is actually not architecture. In the sense that basically it's just a theory, it's just, a thesis, in a sense. Whatever it is, I really like to build things. I want to make it real. So it's kind of in my mind that I've always been a businessman architecture, or businessman architecture. It's purely business. And I think awards is basically just another marketing thing for our office to stay relevant. Of course, it's nice to win, I think, but it's purely to actually get more jobs. Open doors to other projects. Otherwise, you're just stuck in the middle and nobody knows who you are and stuff like that. So it's a way of opening doors. So it's purely marketing to me.
Cherng Yih? We can't hear you, Cherng Yih.
Mike.
You are muted. You are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry, just now I missed the first part because my speaker got problem.
What does it mean to you, Cherng Yih, to win an award?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No, I never thought about award actually. Of course, every project before we start, client do ask me, would this win an award? I say, I really cannot control. It's all beyond. You need a lot of luck. I would say you need a lot of luck. We only can do our best, and we really like it. I think same as Mun Inn's awards, it's just an additional bonus and promoting us. Of course, then it's just a big honor recognized by your peer. Nothing more than that. But I think it may also pile up a lot of pressure that how do you do better and better for the next one? How do you make sure you always keep up to very critical and creative at the same time? I think that's really uneasy. But after that, I think very soon we will forget that because 10 years later, who care about it? 20 years later, nobody will remember.
Okay. Following on that, there's a question that I would like to ask about measurements, right? Because sometimes, let's say, if you look at music, or even if you look at certain artists or whatever, let's say who you like, who their work something that you really admire, and suddenly it receives recognition or wins an award, right? But then you feel, well, the one that the work for which he was awarded is not necessarily kind of the best work of that particular artist. And I think that happens a lot with people who follow certain kind of, so let's say for the both of you, right? Let's say, because I think it was good that both of you showed also other projects, and then kind of you win awards for certain projects and you don't win award for others, right? And let's say, so if we were to talk about this idea of measurement, let's say, were you surprised by the projects that you do that actually win awards, or do you go through this moment where you would think that, well, actually that other project was actually much better, but it's funny that they're giving me an award based on this one? Do you find this kind of your own evaluation or measurement of your own project, does it go hand in hand with the kind of measurement from others, or do you find that they're almost totally kind of on a different track?
I try not to think too much, because if you think too much, it's just going to eat into you. But I think the point is, like I said just now, the planets have to align in the sense that the person who's going to judge you, the jury is going to be there, that whoever's in the jury panel, whoever they invite, as long they're trying to push an agenda. They're there that particular time, that particular year, whatever. They're trying to push an agenda, whether it's a green agenda, whether it's a sustainable agenda, whatever. They will try to push the agenda that particular year, because to them they're the jury. So if they're going to push the agenda, they will start having eyes, or they'll start focusing on projects that kind of promote those agendas. So again, it's really very much dependent on whether your project and their thoughts line up. So if the planets are not aligned, you don't get it. So that's why I think for us, if we think too much into it, it's just going to eat into you. It's just going to screw you up. So it's like you get out, you don't get. So it's pure luck. And so I said, it really comes back to ong. If you got no ong, ong. So I mean, exactly what Cherng Yih was saying. It really comes back to luck. If it happens to you that day, okay, it happens to you.
I always prepare to lose, actually. Every time I prepare not to win, even design competitions. So if we win, then we're surprised. If we not win, it's okay. Because the agenda is always to test something. For competition, it's always to test an idea. That is the first priority. Of course, if we win, it's good luck. And then for building the actual projects, then it's all about luck. Of course, sometimes we also slightly strategically to look at who is the jury, because certain jury you may guess whether their flavor is in tune with you or not. I think that it's also quite important, because you also don't want to submit to a jury panel that who is your enemy, or who is not your good friend, I would rather say.
I will text Cherng Yih privately on the idea of enemies after this session. Okay. So I have one more question before I pick on the question from the audience. There are a few questions coming in. I mean, I like this idea of aspirations, right? Let's say in practice, you aspire to do certain things, and then these things, and I guess it's a nice thing when that vision or that kind of idea that you are kind of scratching to get realized, when it's shared by the client, for example, or when it's shared by kind of other people, when it's recognized as kind of, well, that's actually good, right? And I think because, I mean, as architects, when we are designing, in a way, we are convinced that our ideas are good, right? If otherwise, why would we put it down on paper and commit to it? But I guess the kind of this kind of response from others, right? Let's say whether it's kind of a recognition or whether it's a criticism, also ties into, I guess, how you conduct yourself moving on. Because I think Cherng Yih also talked about the idea of, let's say, added pressure, and Mun Inn talked about this idea of kind of things opening doors, right? So let's say, reflecting on this kind of, I mean, I'm sure that you guys have both won a lot of awards and stuff like that, right? But let's say in your career as an architect, right, now that you having realized all of these things from ideas and seeing how it's used, seeing how it's used by the people at the school, and then kind of being recognized and stuff like that. What are, let's say, aspirations, right? Let's say, especially in these very tough times, what keeps you kind of going, or what is it that you are still looking for, searching for, or looking towards in architecture? And I think that's my final question. And it was very interesting to me that both of you showed the image of Ronsham, right, at the end of your slides. And I would say that Ronsham is also one of those buildings that was a completely magical place. Like there's no other building that has been where it's like that. And I think Corbusier wrote a book towards the end of his life in his 80s, talking about creation is a patient search. So here's an architect who has accomplished everything, writing a book towards the end of his life about searching for something still, right? So maybe just quickly on both of you, are you still searching for something in your kind of path as an architect? Is there still kind of an unrealized itch? Mun Inn, maybe.
Yes, this is actually almost on and off questions that me and our team, it's constantly, me, it's asking, say, are we able to come up with a new mindset or design methodology that is completely different from before? Because I think the hardest part for every architect is to constantly reinvent yourself. If you can reinvent one time in your life, you are really amazing. But how can we constantly do it and push for it? Because I'm really sick of always use back the same old method and mindset for the next project, and then it, as if you never evolve. So the only way is you keep to be very critical to yourself and be very objective to what you are doing every day for the coming work.
Mun Inn?
Just coming back to the topic of Ronsham, whoever's listening in, if you ever have the chance to go, you should go. I actually had the chance to rent a car from Frankfurt, drive 400 kilometers on the left side of the road, on the left side of the car, going down to Ronsham, and I tell you, the experience is truly magical. I mean, the approach, getting there itself, you don't see it in pictures. You see a lot of pictures of Ronsham as it is, on top of the building itself. But as you're approaching it, and in the small town, you actually see Ronsham on top of the hill as an icon. That in itself is already, it makes your hair stand up at the back of your head. It's like, wow, it's there. You're approaching it. And when you actually get there and you go in, it really proves itself, all the stories that you've heard about and all the things you read about Ronsham, it's there. It really is there, and you actually feel it personally. So that's why I said that when you start doing design and you start saying or talking about a particular narrative, you need to prove it. And this project, why I'm showing it is because it proves itself. What it tries to do that floating roof and the little light coming from the side and from the roof line and all the little windows and stuff. It does it, and it does it throughout the day, any time of the day. Literally, anytime you go there, you'll get light coming in from the sides and the roof. It works, and that's what I think your architecture should be like. I'm diverting away from the question, but I think the issue is that if you want to do something with a narrative, I think it has to be proven. So you just don't talk about an idea or a philosophy that you want to show and you want to talk about, but eventually your building or your architecture doesn't have any relationship whatsoever with that philosophy. Okay, having said that, I think awards is good in the sense that I think, like I said just now, it opens doors for new projects. But what it also does is it opens doors to a particular trust that a client gives to you. In which case, then it opens doors for you to try new things and new ideas. Why I say that is, I'm just looking back in the early days when I started, when I started the office, the first few years of architecture. Whenever you present something, an idea, the clients tend to believe you and be 20%, 30%. They kind of like, okay, you're sure. But as you move along and as you develop your career and you develop projects and you start to win awards and stuff like that, the moment you start to present something, you say, okay, let's do this. The trust that the client gives to you is definitely much higher, and you'll get more merit suggesting that kind of idea. You can suggest a crazy idea, things like floating in the middle of nowhere, and for some reason they believe you. Versus you being an early startup in the first few years, you will have a tougher time trying to convince your clients a certain way. So, like I said, awards help you in terms of marketing, in terms of opening doors for you to get new jobs. But at the same time, it also open doors for you to propose new ideas and try new ideas. So you shouldn't stop, just repeating your same design over and over again. I mean, if you're the kind of guy that says, okay, I want to do sustainability or whatever, or green architecture, you win an award, fine, but you don't continue to duplicate that green award. Don't continue to duplicate the same idea. Push it, try new ideas, because now you already have another door open and you're now allowed to try a different idea. And that's where I think you continue to develop. And I think that's where you need to push yourself also. Since now you're given a chance to suggest crazy ideas and people actually believe you, do it.
Okay, thanks, man. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just select 2 questions from the audience. And I think because of time, I will take 1 question and address it to Mun Inn, and 1 question I will address to Cherng Yih. Okay, so there's a question here. Okay, I'm going to send this question to Cherng Yih. What is the differences between competitions and awards?
I think competition is very clear. Your headings, you have to hit the brief very clear. And for the competitions and for the award, you think nothing. What award is a bonus that after you complete the jobs. So it's entirely different things.
Okay. The question to Mun Inn is the idea of criticism, right? I guess both of you. I mean, there's a certain profile, and let's say the work always gets into publication and the public sphere, right? Because you've talked about opportunities, right, Mun Inn, and how it opens ideas to proposing new things. But I guess also work that is put out there in the public realm also attracts a certain amount of criticism, right? And I think this is an interesting question. So how does it affect you moving forward? Do you kind of take it as, well, I know what I'm doing, I'm not going to care about that, you're not a user of the building? Or do you think that, okay, well, maybe there's a point that maybe there's a certain way in which the work could further evolve? The role of criticism.
I think it depends on what kind of criticism. Like, say somebody says that I don't like it, it's damn ugly, I think, okay lah. You think it's ugly, it's fine. I mean, that's your thought, so I can't really control it. I mean, the thing is that if it's a criticism in terms of how it functions or whether it works in a different way or maybe there's a better way of doing it, you can listen to it. I mean, the thing is, it might help. So it really depends, because I wouldn't say that, I don't think that all our projects are perfect anyway, because there are a lot of factors involving from getting it from drawing to being built. And usually when it's finally built, there are a lot of compromises in terms of either cost, constructability, structural, clients' wives, clients' daughters, clients, whatever. There's tons and tons of input that comes into play from the beginning conceptual part to the actual completion. And any of this part will involve something that changes, and they may not be 100% perfect. So to me, it's just take it. Just receive it and say, yeah, I understand. See what you can do. But it's not like, it's like, screw it lah. I know what I'm doing. You say, the point is that if it's open for discussion, yeah, I'll listen.
Thank you, Mun Inn. Thank you, Cherng Yih and Mun Inn, both for the presentation. And as well as those very candid answers, which I think, I mean, it was interesting to me to listen and to kind of discuss these issues with you. Thank you also for those who have contributed questions. There are more questions in the chat, so maybe both of you could also go through the question. If you want, you can reply within the chat box as well as we go through. I'll pass the session back to Erin now for the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nazmi. So yeah, I think what Nazmi said can work. So you guys can just go ahead and answer the questions in the chat. And yeah, thank you again. It was very insightful and enjoyable. I myself didn't mind if it ended late. So yeah, I hope the viewers also are enjoying this as much as I am here. And the first session basically was leaning towards like competitions and awards from, I guess, the perspective of the working industry, I guess. And for the second session, we will be basically moving into students' perspectives. So we have our second moderator here. So it's Mr. Gary Yeo. So once again, he's an SABD alumni, postgrad student at Strathclyde University. And maybe some of you guys know him as from his podcast show, okay, XYZ podcast. And on the other hand, our speakers for this session will also be Jethro Tan and Kalvin Bong. And I'll just let Gary take over and introduce them a little bit more and then begin the second session.
Thanks a lot, Irene. It's actually my pleasure and honor to be the moderator along with Nasmi, and it's very nice. Nasmi was one of the guests in my podcast. To end up the first session, I think it's very interesting. It comes out very to contradict perception of awards. Like I said, Cherng Yih is much more like, if it comes, then it comes, it doesn't really matter if lost that's fine. But for Mun Inn, he sees as a bonus as well, but it's much more on the marketing side, or it's a business. Of course, I understand there is a certain need, as a principal of a firm. I don't know how, quite a huge firm, I would say. And the key that draws commonly between these two speakers, which I thought to inherit into the following speakers as well. And I thought the selling point is quite important. But in this case, because gold award for the build project is kind of different from the students one, which is a bronze award or bronze medal. So allow me to introduce the speaker. So Jethro Tan Chi Kin. He's a 22 years old student, fresh grad from SABD, currently working as an assistant architect. And I think he's like Mun Inn in a way, because I thought when I was reading out his profile, he has been quite active in Future Thinker, PAM Awards, Asian Young Design Award as well. So I thought he's like a star student in a way, I believe. Second one, we have Kalvin Bong. He's a fresh grad as well, and I assume he's also 22 years old. Finalist in PAM Student Award, and then recipient of PAM ZSR Architecture Prize. Parallel to his vision in contemporary reinterpretation of past, he's continuously pursued his obsession with the inheritance of collective memory by bringing together the multi-layer values and relationships between occupants, the public, and the elements of nature and architecture. So I thought, again, Kalvin is like Cherng Yih. He's like staying humble in a way, but then Jethro is kind of like putting a loudspeaker out there. Of course, both of them are, quite marvelous in their works. So without further ado, maybe Jethro, can you share your screen and start presentation? There will be 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jet. So today I'm very glad to have a great opportunity to actually present my final semester's project, that's the Social Cultural Hub. So next. So our site is actually located at the center of the Johor Bahru, and the function of this place is now serves as a parking lot. And we are required to design a social cultural hub on an island site, which cannot be accessed more than 5 stories. And the city lobbies is a place where it's promoting the common interests of the public and to find a free space or a neutral space for a city, which offerings the opportunity for cultural exchange. So before getting to the concept, let's talk about the what is the site impressions and the sense of the place. So the Revo, the heart of the city, JB cities, is actually used to be a floating market that actually gathered the different races of community. But now it's serves nothing more than just a monsoon drain. And the path connections that's on the site, especially used for walking and cycling, are now considered by the heroic skill of vehicles. And the paths are not served as connections between the people, but it creates a boundary in between, and now cars are more visible more over than the pedestrian walkway on the side. And the historical architecture value, Jalan Tan Tock Ni used to attract the locals community with the public characters, but now it became a tool to attract the transient community by enforcing a new program in and left behind the old empty shell of the heritage building. And towards this actually started to lose the accent of the site. And the colonial culture is the only remaining culture that left behind the sites. And the market typologies is a successful node in gathering the community at night, and however, in the daytime, it became more deserted. So Johor Bahru is also a cultural melting pot with different peoples from different demographics, and communities are gathered as their own specific place and times, and they barely overlap in their time in the city. So I hope through more cultural exchange really can be achieved in an environment like this. So in order to solve all of these urban issues, we need to ask ourselves the questions. Which came first, cultures or the communities? Without the communities, culture cannot be exist, but without the cultures, the community is what Johor Bahru is. And Johor Bahru is a city that has started its lost its own original community, and thereby cultures is not of the typology is not built for its people. So as time goes by, Johor Bahru has become an urban focus of exchange between the transient Singaporeans and the local capitalists on the market. And thus, the development of the cities follow the capitalist frameworks allowed the old heritage building to be taken over by the massive building on the site. And despite effort to revitalize the local culture, it cannot be achieved without the interaction between the people. And now the site is more towards to a people to a product rather than a people to a people. And Johor Bahru has become a clockwork city where time and economy has been ultimately displaced by the place, cultures, and communities. And all of this lead to the cities losing its soul and characters because it changed to fit the consumeristics of the community. So the architecture of my buildings actually aim to fix the occurrence by revitalizing the social spaces of the city through a proposed market path. And the market path became a mediator that brings back the accent on the site. And different parts of the market are activated during the time of the day, and each carries its own identity, leading to the personalization of place and attracting both its old and new communities. And moreover, the market creates overlaps, bringing back the interactions between the current fragmented community. So for the design strategies, I first started with a slightly inclined planes envelop the buildings as it generates an endless loop with the active frontage stalls. And the visitors can scroll through a pedestrian's road experience while the heritage building acts as a backdrop. And then instead of putting a huge massive block in the middle of the heritage site, the block is then terraced as a height graduate raised towards the Jalan Dobi to respectfully confront the height of the surrounding heritage building. And then the breathable spaces are then subtracted from the buildings to allow more social spaces from the bazaar and to actually increase the user's field of vision from the inside towards the outside. And next, the facade of the building is then punctured with voids to allow the visual connections through the buildings, connecting the fragmented sectors through permeability by breaking the monotonous facades on the side. And then the blocks are then angled towards the nodes on the side to create a new pedestrian corridor as it informs a directionality of movement for the community through and around it. So from all of these plans, you were able to see the different three market paths which actually activate in the morning, afternoon, and night. The morning path will actually passing through the south side of the building as the users go up to the ramp at this position. And the morning path actually features more on a good food cultural exchange programs. And the path is actually concave, so as the users are going through the morning market, and the heritage building will be act as a backdrop when they're walking around the market path. Whereas for the afternoon path, we're actually cutting through the buildings diagonally, connecting the Jalan Tan Kee streets and creating a shortcut to the direction from the JB Central Bus Terminal. And the afternoon market is more on a cultural arts, cultural exchange market, so that actually feature upcycled furnitures. As more users actually pass through the afternoon markets, chances of passive contact will increase, making it towards people and people interactions. Whereas for the night, it's an extension of night bazaar towards the shortcut path. It is allowed the overflow of the users into the many public and social spaces created by the building. And the space is left unprogrammed on the public realms to actually allow the spontaneous activities to be occurs. So the ground floor is all mainly on an open plan concept that is actually highly permeable to allow the different community to be accessed in. So for the next, the first floor is actually act as semi-public spaces that features the programs for the surrounding community. As the users enter to the first floor through the main staircase, they will see a theater spaces. It's actually configurable spaces that actually open up towards the public to access to the second floor. Through it, actually, the sittings actually double up as act as a staircase too. So, and the library also is actually jutting out into the void spaces as well as the corridor to actually overlook towards the void, creating the eyes on the street. And the second floor is more towards private spaces, actually programmed such as a circular broker on the sides, and the arts and dance spaces are actually intentionally put on the top to create a quiet and comfortable environment for the learning. So in the middle, as you can see, there's a huge void that actually allows users to overlook the market path on the floor below. So the terraced void is actually allowed the highest floor to have a visual connectivity to the main program of the markets on the ground floor. So at the same time, it's actually create a safety, social interactions and visual interest for the communities within the building. So the car is the car park is more to an open ventilation concept, which actually allowed the cross ventilation to pass through, bringing the more natural daylight in at the same time. The building itself is more on a stacked ventilation, which actually helped to release the heat out of the building on the daytime. So the skylight of the building is then actually aligned towards the market path, and actually a lot more natural lighting to light up the spaces and guide the users through the market. And the facade is also actually orientated in against the direction side to actually create a cooler spaces for the interior. And actually, yeah. So next, so for the isometrics, the building is actually, as you can see, it's actually curved in the various points to actually create the focus spaces of for the public spaces around the building, and also allowed the heritage to be reviewed as the users walk around the perimeter. And as the many colors shows the different journey path on the community on the side, and the multi-purpose walkway have become a connections point or a contact point, which actually gathering the communities through the different market path that actually increase the passive and later active contact between the people and people. And finally, 3 hours later, we are reaching to the JB Socials Cultural Hub. So as you enter to the front of the building facing toward the Jalan Sagit, you are then channeling in through the directional of the angled facade. As you walk along to the building, it's permeable and open up towards you, then leading you through a pedestrian corridor on the angled slope, creating a welcoming entrance which invite you to the memorable heritage site. Next, as you enter to the market, an axis of light then penetrates through the skylight above the market path. As you meander through the building, the old social cultural aspect of the river is then captured as the market store reveal themselves at each element. And this is the top view towards the market path. And then the new market path that actually intersects and extends the surrounding street into the building. As you move along, you will see different blocks actually jutting out, showcasing the various cultural program of the buildings, and bring you back to the old street where life are just beside you. And the path actually form a concave adjacent to the streets, creating a public spaces of programs overflow from the night market. As you move around the envelope building, a constant site is then shifted you as a ditch towards the heritage site. Next, a staircase. A staircase is actually connected to the ground floor to actually to the top to actually double as a platform of the spontaneous activities, and it's also a perfect gathering space for you and the community to have an opportunity for cultural exchange. So in conclusion, through addressing the issues of consumeristic communities, the market path and the public space we've actually encouraged more towards the people and people interactions. With attracting both the locals and transients community to JBs, we actually reintroduce a lost cultures of the place by allowing each individual user to write their own stories. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Jethro.
Yeah.
Kalvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, so Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalvin, and actually, before when I first received the invitation, right, regarding on what's the secret formula of the winning the awards or the competitions, right, I've actually made a short summary of the secret formula that I would like to share with everyone today. So I think when it comes to competition, apart from how well the expression of design in your work, one of the most important part that probably you would like to pay attention to probably is the verbal presentation. Because to me, word is extremely powerful. You see the reality, right choice of word can really change people's mind. So when we get shortlisted for the final round of the award, the judging round, and what we are competing for is no longer your design. Instead, it's focusing on our presentation, how impactful it can be to the judges. And personally, I am more to a story curator when I present. I like to make my presentations to a story, summarizing what I've discovered from the beginning and how I've expressed and implemented the ideas into my design. And when I present, usually what I like to do, apart from telling the facts, telling the reasoning, is to build up the connection with people's emotion, what they see and feel, why they see that, and why they feel comfortable within the spaces that I've designed. Because after all, right, between humans, we need to have that basic resonance and relevance at emotional level before it comes to a mutual agreement, then only be able to have that common culture that we are sharing today as a collective and impacting. Yeah, I think be confident to your own self design and a thorough preparation can make your verbal presentation definitely a lot better. So yeah, this is what I've summarized from what I've done for the award. And moving forward, I'm sharing to you my project which have won the awards, and whereby we were asked to design a culture and innovation center in one of the Royal Heritage Towns, Muara Johor. Okay, first let me explain about the title, the dematerialized threshold. It comes by the concept of the blurring boundaries that we experience in the century-old Nanyang shophouses there back in Muar. So these shophouses are very important. They make up the largest part of the city. It is very common to find that the threshold spaces like the five-foot walkway and also the central courtyard are not clearly defined, and the locals are used to using these spaces without norms. But as time goes by, it forms that some sort of memory of space and sentimental values among the locals. So to me, the core of this project is culture, and culture is way of life. If you consider these food and traditions as part of the cultures, then architecturally, would you consider these century-old shophouses too as cultures that are vanishing soon? What I'm doing, apart from preserving the usual cultures, right? I also want to preserve their collective memories as well, because these shophouses resemble their way of life across the century. So program-wise, I do want to recreate the existing culture and compete with the existing retailers. Instead, I think it should be complementing their persistence on the traditional craftsmanships that they have in back in more. So while I was having my research, I came across these few taglines stating that um, Johor is keen to be to revive its losing culture, which is the arts and tradition of the Songket Tenun weaving. So, and these are the reasons why the traditions are dying off. New millennials like you and me, right, tend to go for this. They are very cheap because of mass production. So I'm thinking, is there any other innovative way to achieve such cheap price for the Songket Tenun? And interestingly, I found the solution in this Songket Tenun Muar. The pattern showcase different Johor agriculture specialties. Like the main one will be pineapple, and usually we eat the fruits and throw away the pineapple shoots. But back in Philippines, pineapple shoots are used to extract the fibers, all right, and also turn into fabrics. So clearly there are opportunities and also alternative resources to lower down the cost, because these pineapple shoots are waste and technically waste are free. So the same goes to the mangosteen and also the different spices that is being produced in more, and they're good to be used as a natural color dye to replace the expensive chemical dyes. So what I propose here is to shift the focus from mass production to production using agricultural waste. It is an innovation introduced to more, which is a more sustainable way of weaving. And you also see that cultural relevance, it is tying back not just to more, but also the entire Johor. As we mentioned just now, all the pineapple spices and everything. So the site is located very centrally in the city, right opposite to a bus terminal and a food court. And beside is actually the canalized rivers that leads to the Moa River opposite. And then the back is facing a primary school. So these neighbors are actually potential users that are targeted to attract. So following the way of how the city initially builds up, I started to set up the build form perpendicularly to the river axis and in a continuous reference with the adjacent old shop houses as per seen on the top right renderings. And the site also has another street facing on the right bottom. It is actually in a row of these modern shop houses, buildings, and that's why the fabric facade looks much more modern compared to another side facing. And since that the building is open to the public, I want to make sure that the building looks transparent as well. So I introduced the steels to minimize the solid structure that support the shop house. Usually shop house use very thick and heavy walls, but instead over here, I'm replacing it with steels. And steels are very good to play with as well, porosity and light. And slowly I took away the roof tiles, replace it with this transparent roofing and with some parts open up to the skies as well. So the build form dematerialized in transition from the most right to the most left. All right, and yet it resembles that authenticity of the shop houses, but with a much more modern approach. So you also can see that the staircases are located strategically outside to ease the accessibility of users from all directions. So this is the section, and from far you can see that the lines of yarn wrapping through the building to a fabric woven facade hanging up as pavilion and also the facade. Inspired by operation and aesthetic of the traditional weaving loom, the entire process from the lines to the final woven products is actually celebrated here. So originally there's only the pedestrian bridge from the bus terminal on the most right, leading into the sites. So I decided to take it as an advantage and extend it all the way to the end to connect the bus terminal all the way to the primary school through my building. And in terms of spatial arrangement, the exhibition and event spaces are placed facing the bus terminal to serve as a temporary catchment. And the quiet admin zone is placed behind facing the school. Okay, since that the school needs a quiet environment as well. And the production spaces are arranged in sequence as the traditional weaving process. So in betweens are filled with the spices and herbs gardens and also waterscapes that blur the boundaries between the inside and outside. It is very similar to the concept of the internet courtyard that we encounter in the old shop houses. And just nice that the building will receive a lot of natural light as well. So yeah, probably next I will be explaining about the entire experience that you're going to have in my culture center. So the memory begins to surface from the moment when you step into the culture center. It begins with the storefronts facing the happening 5-foot walkway and the busy road with lots of hot car honking sounds. And then the patch of these exposed bricks in the wall that you touch and you feel that rustic texture when you're in the textile installation gallery. It was used to be the old shop houses converted into a new installation gallery without changing anything of the shop houses. With a slight familiar noise behind the background, it comes from the bargaining sounds of uncles and aunties at the textile market. And moving on to the production spaces, you see the veterans soaking the textile up and down into the color dyes repetitively. And you also hear the sound of squeezing and flapping the texture. Then you follow him to the drying area. The sun is shining so bright into the space, with shadow cast on the floor, and people strolling along the river stop by and take a look on you, and also the veteran drying the clothes. So upstairs, you are on the pedestrian bridge that connects the bus terminal all the way to the primary school. Um, it is filled with laughing sounds of the visitors coming from the bus terminal, and also the running footstep sounds from these primary school kids. They are all happy. And first floor, at a quieter garden, you see some random people sitting and contemplating, maybe about their life when they turn old. And also an artist studio and quieter weaving and sewing spaces are placed at the back facing the school as well, very similar to the admin zone and ground floor. And moving up the second floor, which is a more research base, then you finally reach the top with a view framing towards the Moa River. You take a deep breath, the air is so fresh. So I think the experience is beyond sensational. It is more than just sunlight and the greens, the fresh air that you breathe in, the wall you touch. There is also this form of memory echoing through the overlapping sounds. And these different layers of sensual complexity are actually forming up our Malaysians' daily life, which we don't often realize. And that's again showing that how it forms the relevance to the locals. Yep, this is my Culture Innovation Center. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kevin and Jethro. I think we won't go through the details of the programs or whatnot. I believe that is pretty much self-explanatory, and it's well illustrated. Thanks for staying with us. So now we have questions. I have prepared some. So maybe we can start off with the understanding and perception of competition. I would like to invite you, gentlemen, to tell us about your earliest or memorable perception of competition. Maybe, in primary school, the coloring contest or spelling bees, Can you please tell us what is the most memorable one for you?
Probably chorus speaking when I was in primary school.
Okay.
The memorable part is because we work as a team, chorus speaking, right? So we work as a team in a almost 30 people group of team. So we actually went through a lot of practices, all that, and eventually we won the award. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's the memorable part since the youngest part of me. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Jethro?
For me, I think I only have participated on the basketball competitions.
Okay.
Yeah. I think.
So, right. How does it feel like? I mean, do you feel happy because it's a rather exclusive experience? Do you think? It means like others can't win the competition, but you did it, or is it because do you think the happiness or the joy comes from the process or the result?
I think for me, I think it's more on the process because we practice every day after our classes,
Right.
and I think after that we got we win a second prize, and I think it's very happy because we grow along the process. Yeah.
Right. So
I think definitely is happy because we are young, right? During the time we are young, definitely will feel happy with everything, every surprise that we got.
Right. So in a way, winning a competition makes you feel motivated in a way. Do you feel like once you won a basketball competition, you will continue win more, or then you put more effort, to win more competition, or do you think it's fine? I mean, once in a lifetime, YOLO kind of thing.
I think we need to keep up the
momentum.
Yeah, the momentum. Yeah.
Right.
So keep practicing and keep challenge ourselves to go through the limits. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think I have a different perception because when I was young, I don't think I have such a mature mind. So, like after I got win the competition, the awards, right? I don't think I really have any motivation to keep me going to actually participate in more choral speaking competitions. But I think eventually it just ends there. But I think compared to now, right? Yeah, it does motivate. That's the difference.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So I believe that winning a student awards competition, I wouldn't say really a competition, is an award, isn't it? Because you did the proposal for the school, but at the same time you submit it for the awards, right? So how does that feel like when you have this aim in your mind when you are designing this assignment, or do you just simply thinking like, I just wanted to finish the assignment with the best effort I could do, and then if lucky, then with a little bit on, then you win the competition, win the award.
Yeah.
I think when we design, definitely we won't think so much. We will just design our best.
Right.
Yeah. And eventually the awards is actually a surprise to me. Never thought of it.
Nice.
Right.
How about you, Jethro?
Yep, I think same as me.
Yeah.
We didn't think about the competition yet, because when I design, I just focus on the academic result.
Doing well the design.
Yeah.
Okay.
The design.
Okay, now I would like to do a very brief exercise just between two of you. So Jethro, I want you to be one of the jury for Kalvin's work, and then Kalvin, you will be one of the juries for Jethro works. Okay. So in your mind, drop one thing that you don't like about the project. I mean, there's no such thing as a project is as perfect, you know. There must be a certain things it's just not compatible to your personal preference. It's not saying it's not good. It's just you don't feed it with your own personal preference, okay? You don't have to talk about it. You just keep in your mind. And do you think that disadvantage or mistake or a certain detrimental elements in your peers' works can be covered by presentation skill? Meaning to say it could be covered by renderings, it could be covered by Photoshop, it could be covered by, I don't know, InDesign or AI. So do you think, is it possible? Or it's much more on circulation, it can't be solved by graphics?
To me, yes, it can be covered.
Okay.
Right.
So you think Jethro's mistake could be covered by graphics?
No, actually, I'm not too, because so far I'm not too sure what Jet has done to covering his mistake. But for me, right, I did it lah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it happens to my case in my own apparently this project.
Okay.
Yeah, so first, I don't know, I could share an example. Like currently this project, right, I've shared just now, actually have a lot of holes. So, a lot of judges will be like, hey, what about the rains coming in from the side, from the top, everywhere? So actually all these things, right, I mean, I do have an answer for it, but obviously I have to try to cover it as much as possible so that, they won't actually continuously prompt for that question and want to get the answer from me. Yeah, so I just tried, in Photoshop, try to cover it with all the plants, make their attention focus shift from that holes to something else. Yeah.
Right. So technically, graphic is like a plaster to cover your wound.
Right. Somehow.
How about Jethro? Do you think have anything you would like to share?
For mine, I think is choosing a great angle to cover all your holes and all your problems. Because my roof actually can deliver too much, and I actually choose an angle to make it more shorter a bit. Yeah.
It's very nice that you actually identified that I won't say mistake, but you self-criticize and you understand what are the things that happen in your proposal. Because as I was looking up, now another question on graphics as well. For Jethro, your perspective, the killer perspective, for example, that angle, I don't believe it could be visible in real life, because I think the camera is sort of a wide angle, it appears to be sharper than it is. And and then you put up the humans and you put up the birds or animals in your own mind, and then you wish that to be visualized in a certain sense. I believe this happens in a lot of things, in a lot of renderings, not just for you. For Kalvin, I noticed yours is much more on line works. and then you have montages, you have bird movements. The following question is, do you think there will be two options. One is good design but bad graphics or bad presentation. Another one is good presentation and good graphics but bad design. Which one would you prefer?
Good design with bad graphics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Because
good design is the priority.
Right.
Yeah, because at the end is how the users feel the space. Yeah, you need to build for the user.
Okay.
To me, I think I'm more onto like the values of architecture, because since we are in this course, we are studying for that. It's something that we are passionate for. So I think I'll rather go for the right values rather than the worst bad graphics, because eventually, to me, values is more important. After all, yeah.
But from what I see from the first session, like Mun Inn showed these Instagram feeds. So, but without a good graphic, you can't get there, isn't it? So in that case, how do you see the minimum approach or the quality control?
I think it depends on how you actually perceive architecture in your own way. Some people actually they are very visual based, so they look at visual and they find that it's interesting. I think the world today works in this way. So, but for me, right, I think rather than visual, we should also focus on the values behind, the stories behind the design, because sometimes a very good visual doesn't mean that it has a good design, and a good design doesn't mean that it has good value as well, vice versa. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm trying to avoid just looking on purely just on the visuals, but instead I would rather want to listen to the philosophical side of that person, or the background story of that person, that makes the entire things sounds much more interesting. And yeah, to me that is my perception, right?
Thanks a lot. Jethro, do you have anything to share?
Yes, I'm actually totally agree on Kalvin's ideas. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more on the spatial quality rather than the visual part. Yeah.
Okay. So I have some questions coming across, and I think might as well just ask you now. So on the topic of graphics, do you use the same type of graphics for different projects, or does the choice of style or graphics is related to the content? Jethro, I'm not sure about you, because if not mistaken, your previous works have been quite consistent with the so-called realistic rendering, isn't it?
Yes, for my semester 5 and semester 6, but semester 4 I have tried a different way in more on a collage rendering. Actually, based on the my concept and the feeling of the space to decide which renders should I use. Yeah, which type of style should I use for different project. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Kalvin? Have you been changing, or is so far quite consistent with the line works?
Actually, let me think. Yeah, I think I'm quite consistent with the line work. The reason is because usually when it comes to the presentation part, right, we only have like limited time to actually produce our work. So due to the time restriction, I have no choice. The only thing I can do is actually to continue on with the line renderings, because it will be much more faster and easier.
Right, which is way comfortable for yourself.
Right, but I did try to do the realistic rendering as well, but I think it takes too much time. It depends on what you want to focus on for your presentations. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I believe that now you found the so-called right voice for yourself to express your ideas.
Yeah.
Next question is actually the last question for the first part of my questions. I split this into two parts. One is much more on your personal level, and another one is much more between among yourself. So what would you like to propose to the school? Let's say propose to Dr. V or Taylor's and say, what could be done to allow more students to join this sort of competition? And I'm not sure, because is this competition is much more on self-initiated, or the lecturers ask you or invite you to send out the entry?
For me, it's both. I mean, our lecturers did mention to us that, hey, there is a student awards, you can go and participate, try out. And at the same time, it's also PAM is emailing to us regarding on the event. So actually, it's both sides. So what I would suggest to school, I think a lot of times, probably it's also a lot of voices from the students, from tailors. I'm not too sure, but based on what I've heard of,
in what sense?
in that
sarcastic sense?
No, not sarcastic. Like just like some I don't know, some complaints that we have is that, you know, sometimes it could have been better that the school could have sponsored us to go for the competitions, because apparently a lot of competitions take a lot of money, right? So we are not that rich as well. Probably some is, but yeah. So yeah, probably we actually hope that the schools can, you know, sometimes give a chance to sponsor us. Because usually what we are able to afford is just free competitions. Apart from that, right, we don't have the chance to go for any other expensive euro-based competitions.
Right.
At 100 euros costs us like 500 ringgits over here. So
right.
Yeah, definitely it will be better. The school is able to sponsor. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
How about you, Jethro? I mean, I see you quite active in joining competition as well, isn't it?
It's more. I think it's more on my own personal ones that I wanted to join these competitions. And I also get invited by some of my lecturers. Actually, asked me to actually join the competition as well. And for any suggestion, I think.
Do you need mentor to help you out further, or
I think?
Do you think you need cheerleader?
I need sponsor.
You need sponsor as well.
Yeah,
okay.
Sponsor as well.
So you both are much more on the financial support.
Yeah, because it's quite expensive to. Sometimes they need some entrance fee for the competitions. Yeah.
Okay. But apart from this PAM award, it's much more like you using your final projects to submit and you try your luck. But did you guys try like competitions for the purpose design, like specially designed for a wine center, or specially designed like 120 hours kind of competition? Have you guys tried that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys been busy with the assignment?
Yes, I would say.
Okay.
But for me, I think I participated in others are like sculpture competitions, all that. Yeah, which one's hosted by Veritas. Yeah, the reason why we participate is also because it's free.
Right.
There's not any charges needed.
Right. So the primary factor to allow you or to encourage you is the fee, is the entrance fee. So apart from that, you can actually try other things out as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, in the chat box, Jowin also mentioned you can gather with a few friends. I do agree, because back then I joined a few competition, even though needs entry fee, but you need to see. I mean, it depends. Some they might ask for quite expensive, and if you are quite confident with a certain competition, then why not? You can give it a try. I think it's in the end it's still very good for your own learning process, and also collaborate with different kind of people, and then to get used to this kind of a competition culture, I would say. Okay, so the last 10 minutes. So everyone, if you have any question, feel free to drop in the chat box. I will ask the interpersonal questions, since both of you are in Architect Eric's tutorial group, isn't it? How do you see the competitiveness and studio culture? Do you think Jethro is your competitor in a way, or Kalvin is Jethro's competitors?
Actually, Kalvin is my senior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're different batches.
Yeah.
So
different batches. Okay. Okay. But how about in the same cohort? Let's say Jethro, you are in the one semester, and how do you see the competitiveness between your units? Is it going quite dull in a way? It's going quite. It's like you are the only one who actually made it so far, or do you think your classmates are doing quite well as well?
My classmates are doing very great job, and actually I didn't think that I don't think when comparing the project, I always feel that is I have not much of confidence in it, and I think it's more on using my normal feeling to go with this project. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Kalvin? Do you think is it competitive within your batch or semester?
Competitive. I don't know. When I design, right, I actually never think of like the competitiveness because it's something that what I'm really passionate of. So I wouldn't really much care about how the others people think and how competitive is there outside there, because I believe that even though if it is competitive, there are still some parts that people is able to differentiate you and others.
Right.
So to me, when I do the design, I never really go and think so much like, oh, my friend is much more better than me. The way I design and the way you present is much more better than me. I mean, I do face this kind of situation sometimes, but the thing is that it is still not the last step. It is still not the last, it's just like interim. The person is do better than you. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that in the end, the last final presentation is going to do better than you as well. You still have a chance to actually, convert it back.
Right.
But the thing is, I never think so much. I think, yeah, he did well, she deserved it. So, because she's also doing something that she likes, I'm also doing something I like. So yeah, I'm having a very open mind to the entire environment.
So you did mention you yourself not being too competitiveness, or some Chinese would say kiasu in a way.
Right.
But if you just acting quite normally, but do you think if let's say your peers being kiasu or competitiveness, being competitive, does it affect you, like brings pressure to you? No?
Definitely it will bring pressure to me in the sense that they have a lot of productions, like, during the tutorials, a lot of people tend to make a lot of models to show their efforts and their thinking, all that. I mean, but to me, somehow you will have a pressure, but after all, right, I don't follow what the person does. Let's say a person have 10 models, I'm not going to do the 10 models as well. Probably I will just, try to do my best to have a lot of models to show my explorative thinking as well. Definitely you have that little pressure onto that, but definitely in the end, I'm not comparing entirely with that person. Yeah, to make that I have to achieve the same result of that person. No, I'm not thinking that way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jethro, you are the senior, isn't it? So how do you feel about it so far?
I'm the junior.
Oh, you are the junior.
Yeah.
Okay.
My feeling the same. Yes, we didn't compare with anyone, because sometimes I will get some pressures from my peers, but just do your work and do whatever you think is right and whatever you think is confident to you. And I think that's the best way for you to actually go on your project, rather than looking for others, or they did a lot of model, or they did a lot of drawings and so on. I think just keep on your work and believe in your work. Then I think that is pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think when it comes to the final question, actually, okay, I'm not sure. We should be end in maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Okay, maybe I can throw a few questions. Both of you are actually tutored under Eric's group, and I thought, the works are sort of similar in a way. It's not creating this kind of bulky design, but rather there are a lot of mini boxes happening within this shell. So let's just assume a scenario where both of you are in the same class, and then Eric say, I can only employ one of you. Do you think that, Jethro, you will say, it's okay, I will give up myself and then I will find another company? Or would you say, I will take it? So this question is not supposed to break your brotherhood in a way, but I just wanted to know, how do you see, the selfish, not selfish, but selfish in a way, like, how do you help yourself to move further, and also, what do you want for yourself? Would you let go the position or you would take it?
Maybe Kalvin first.
I'll let go. I'll let to Jet.
Okay.
no, because I think after it depends on what you think about it, because for me, you know, I already know what my lecturers want. What is the styles that is favored to? So I would rather try something else, rather than continue staying with the lecturers.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, probably I will prefer to actually go out there to actually have a look at the other part of the world.
Okay.
So both of us,
okay.
me and Jack are going to let go the chances.
So I wonder, is Eric here? So sorry, both of them don't want to work. But it's okay. It's okay. I hope that you guys will will do well, excel in the future. So maybe I can take some comments. Mun Inn say is even more competitive amongst the lecturers. I do agree. I do feel that way back then when I was in Taylor's. The first questions, maybe the last, and then the first one is, do you have any opportunity to cross collab between batches, because you both are in different semester, isn't it? So would matchmaking process will help you? Maybe like an Aki Tinder kind of thing. Do you think so? Do you think it will help?
Aki Tinder.
So do you know Kalvin before the competition?
Yes, of course.
So you guys know each other.
Right.
Because of competition, but not because of other assignment, or just bump into each other in studio?
I think the reason why we know each other is because of certain events,
or
certain course that requires that cross collaborations.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like semester
some of the elective. Right.
Oh, so it's like a measure drawing or something then
correct.
combined together. Okay. So maybe I don't know. Maybe the school will think about it. Other ways to connect the juniors and seniors. Okay. A question from Zazie. Which one is easier, designing individually or as a group for design competition? So maybe Kalvin, would you like to answer that?
Which one is easier? I cannot find a better. I cannot define an answer.
But do you prefer to work alone in a way you can have full control and you don't have anyone to blame because you yourself are the one responsible for everything?
Yes, but at the same time, I also prefer a team as well, because I think a team can everybody can share their advantages and also their strengths into contributing the projects. So definitely the outcome is kind of you have expected, because those people are you're looking for, right, as a team. So they can actually help you to share the burdens, share the thoughts, because sometimes ideas, this kind of thing, it doesn't come out as an individual. Sometimes it comes as a group or something, where we have a warm up, like have a meeting, then we all discuss how we can get some ideas. Sometimes it comes in that way, and sometimes it also comes in individually. So to me, none of this team or either individual is actually easier. To me, both of them have difficulties, except we have a fabulous idea already in your mind. Then that way, I think probably individual will be better.
Right.
But if let's say you don't have anything, you'll start from scratch, then I think none of them are easier. Yeah.
Right. How about you, Jethro? Do you think works alone better or
I think
in a group?
I think both have its own pro and cons. Like if you're working as a group, you can bounce idea with your teammates, because that's actually easily help you to kickstart a project from different comments from the others. Whereas for the individual, I think it's more on when you have an idea in your mind, you can straight up to go with the idea you think it will be a concept that you think it will be great. But where sometimes you actually work as a group, sometimes you have different kind of comments and others. At the end, you will not actually use the idea that you like the most. Yeah.
Right.
So it actually depends. Yeah.
Okay, I believe it also depends on the skill of the competition or the award as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe the last one. Okay. I would like to ask you guys, like, what's next step? Because you guys are just graduated from part 1. So what's the future in a way? Would you still continue trying to submit your projects into different kind of platforms, or you will just focus on your work? Or or perhaps you don't want to work as an architect anymore. You wanted to do something else.
Probably, yes, definitely. If have the chance, then definitely we will continue to participate in more competitions, because I think the award is quite motivating in the sense that it does motivate me to keep exploring different designs and different ideas. To change the design concept mindset to in a bigger scale.
Right.
So if given a chance in terms of financial ability, definitely we will have we will actually participate more in the competitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jethro, any final thoughts before we close this up?
Yeah, I think same as me, and if I given a lot opportunity, I would maybe continue to challenge it and to challenge my limit, and waiting for some financial support.
Okay, cool. I believe that opportunities at some point you have to, we all have to try for that as well. And then financial part, I believe the school will knows to do something. Okay. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much for staying out with us.
Thank you.
And so that's all for the session 2. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Kalvin and Jethro, again for the inspiring sharing, and great answers to the questions. Yeah, when you guys were put on the spot there, and and thank you, Gary, as well, for moderating the whole session so well. And we've actually shoot past time due to the great conversation and topics, but I guess it's almost the end. Please don't leave us yet. So yeah, on behalf of the team and audience, I'll thank Mr. Gary and Mr. Nazmi again for being such great moderators. Thank you, AR Mun Inn and AR Cherng Yih, for sharing such great projects and advice, I guess, for everyone watching today during the first session. And also thank you, Mr. Kalvin and Jethro, for being such inspiring speakers and seniors. And also not to forget, thank you everyone for joining us and participating in today's event. Okay, really don't leave yet. Okay, so because it's an online event, right, we can't take photos. So can everyone just join us in a photo session and turn on your webcams and turn on your webcams, everyone, then we can see all your beautiful faces. Okay, don't be shy. Okay, I'll wait 1 minute, and then I'll start to take the screenshots. Also, I think during this time, while we wait for everyone to open their webcams, we will share a feedback form as well, and you can kind of answer these few questions to give us some feedback for improvement in our future sessions and events. Okay, so I'll start taking the screenshots now. You guys don't know what page you are, but just smile, okay? Hold on, Okay, wait, I'll take the first page. Okay, smile. Okay, hold on. Okay, so once again, I think thank you everyone for joining. I hope you guys had a great time. It was such a great session. I personally enjoyed it so much. I think I learned a lot, especially from not just Mr. Azim and his kid. Hi, Mr. Azim. So we learned so much from not only these working professionals, but the way I think everybody approach architecture is different. It depends on your intention as well. I think if I were to conclude a little bit about the discussions, if you were targeted to join competitions, of course your graphics play a huge part in capturing the audience attention, I guess. But also what Kalvin and Jethro said, the intention behind how you perceive architecture and how important the design is also is important, and it really based person to person lah. Yeah. So okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Help us fill in the feedback form, and yeah, stay updated on our socials. So we have our Instagram page at SABD Tribe, and also Facebook page, as well as our mailing trails. So just stay updated, and yeah, this is officially the end. So thank you everyone again, and have a great evening. Yay. Bye. Thank you.